Hi there. Thank you so much for listening to Grounded in Maine today. My name is Amy Bolduc, and my guest today is Jeremiah Jancik of Jancik Consulting. And Jeremiah is a multi-talented. I should have planned that word ahead of time, but Jeremiah, you do tons of things in the sustainability world. But like you were saying, like energy audits, you work with solar, HVAC, electric. I mean, you name it, and you've done so many things. And this is not a new thing. I mean, you've been doing, was it solar since 2010? Solar,
Yeah,
you've been working with solar since 2010. So, we're gonna debunk some myths and we're gonna talk all this stuff that Jeremiah is doing, you guys. So, Jeremiah, thank you so much for being here. I'm really thrilled to share this information.
thanks. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I started slinging solar panels in Jersey in 2010. That was my introduction to it. Hot and cold, all the good fun stuff. But yeah,
Is that where you're from? Is that what your accent is?
I'm in Philadelphia. I'm in Philadelphia currently. I'm originally from 𝗚𝗿𝐶𝘂𝘁𝘂𝘁, Scranton, which is probably what you hear.
All right, cool. And you're also an author. Like I forgot that one, but yeah.
I've done a little author. I wrote like a climate fiction book for fun, kind of kept me, working during the pandemic, but then also I've done technical advising on solar installation books and some energy efficiency manuals as well. And right now with my current role, I do consulting. So we write reports to utilities, which isn't, I don't know if that makes me an author, but still have to I try to make it fun, I guess, where I
Makes you
can.
a pro. That's what makes you.
Yeah, it makes me, I get paid for that writing, so that's good. Absolutely.
So let's see. So you're doing a lot. Well, you're not doing a lot of energy audits. You're doing a lot of consulting right now,
Right.
but you have done the energy audits. And so what if we can start with that? Like,
Mhm.
what is important about an energy audit? Like, why is it important to get an energy audit? Let's start there.
Sure. Right. So that was something I started doing years ago. I've done thousands of them now. And now when I do consulting, I'm more helping other contractors and teaching, new people how to do it as well. I do miss it sometimes. It's really, first of all, it's interesting and fun to talk about people in their home about their home, because, this is obviously one of the biggest investments they're going to make. And a lot of people just don't know anything. So, and that's fair. Why would they? And I like to come in and say, I guess we'll go through like maybe a little bit of the process itself, kind of understand like along the lines of why we're doing it. So when I go into a home initially, we'll talk to the homeowner, get an idea on what their questions are, what they want to know, what's hot, what's cold, what's, drafty types of things. It's not always windows. I think people sometimes just go to windows immediately because of advertising. That's just the world we live in. But I think there's so many other ways to spend money. But it, efficiently, do investments.
Hmm.
So sometimes I find myself talking people out of windows from time to time. And then we'll go through, we talk to the homeowner, and then we start walking around the house and looking for a few specific areas.
Hmm.
I have BPI, which is Building Performance Institute. It's mostly for retrofits. So if you're interested in getting that certification, you can get that. They have them at community colleges. You can also just look it up online and you take tests, and it's a process for evaluating a home effectively. Um, Typically, when someone comes in and they, work in HVAC or they work in electrical, they just kind of do their thing and then they just move on. And what we're trying to do is look at the whole home as a package and make sure we're not missing anything and how it all works together. Not only worrying about efficiency but safety
Right. Okay. So
itself. Mhm.
building, what's the P?
Performance.
Performance
Mhm.
Institute. Okay. Is that
Mhm.
must be high in demand right now?
It is. It's high in demand. It kind of depends on the area a little bit. There's a few other certifications you can do if you're doing new in an area that has a lot of new construction. There's a HERS rater, which is similar, and they're looking at new homes and making sure that they meet a certain amount of criteria too. So if you can go that way, and there's new stuff coming up all the time. We're starting to see more electrification certifications. You can do that.
Hmm.
And then I actually took during the pandemic, I took a electrical course. like at a community college. So you can kind of look into those. And those harder. I thought it was, it was pretty challenging.
Well, all the
So like if
wires.
you're
My gosh.
all those yes, absolutely. All those wires, all that safety, making sure that it's all that's not a math. But it was also really useful if you're interested, for me personally, moving into the trades, just the it's also construction. The classes I took, this was at a place in California. It was a lot of construction management classes. So it was really good. I would highly recommend it if you're thinking about, moving into like the trades area. Um, and then I did a lot of HVAC work as well, and just kind of learning where I could, and always learning really.
Well, that sounds like they're all sort of connected, you
They
know,
are.
like
They are. Yeah. What? Sorry.
like it or not. You've got your
Yeah.
electric, the HVAC, the solar, the energy audits stuff. They're all sort of connected.
When we talk right, and we talk about renewables, we talk about solar, we need to make sure that all those different components can work with the solar. So it's, you want to make sure your breaker for the HVAC is big enough or small enough, or the oven, or all those different things.
Right.
They all got to work together. So it's a new technology. I mean, we used to just slap some wood together and put some newspaper in a wall and call it insulated and just, light a log on fire. You can't do that anymore. Everything's getting more compact and, better technologies, and these all be it's new. It's not like plumbing. Plumbing's been around forever. This is
Right.
all.
Well, but, I mean, plumbing used to be like metal pipes. Is it copper pipes? No, that's water.
Maybe thinking cast iron.
Okay.
And there used to be some lead, which isn't great, which is part of it. But yes, I mean, plumbing is a lot of, I find plumbing interesting because so much of it's just gravity. It's just like you put the water up there, and then and there's different ways to manipulate it. Um,
You just got to stop
and-
it from coming out in between.
yeah, right. Well, now we got a lot of glues for that stuff, but I've seen some pretty masterful plumbing work that I'm always the guy that's walking into one of those places that has exposed HVAC. I'm always like looking around at it, that sort of thing. It's
Wow.
my
Yeah.
it's my deal.
Wow. And so that's the part where that would stress me out. Like if I were doing something like that, I'd be like, okay, so the breaker, is that big enough? Is that not like how many it's like outlets and
Yeah.
I like no, that's where you lose me. Well, anything
I mean,
electric, you lost me. But
it's like a lot of things that are that hard with electrical. There's they what you learn is how to look it up in the book. Um, so I don't memorize anything anymore. I was working on something today, and like, do you know what that is? I was like, I don't remember. I'll look it up.
I don't
I
remember
don't,
that.
I don't memorize things. I just look them up in the book and know how to be safe. There are grizzled, electricians out there that can, quote scripture and verse from the NEC code books, and I don't want to be able to. It's not-
Well, and they're also super tough. I mean, and I might be wrong, but they're also super tough and they can take a zap here and there.
They they could take a zap, and the stuff has changed so quickly. Like the code books with electrical, every 3 years it's changed. So sometimes I'm like, yeah, dude, that was in 1994 is what you're quoting from. It's a different time now. So and I have to deal with permitting inspections, sometimes. So I keep that in mind. It's part of my job.
Hmm.
Always with a smile on my face. I try not to be the grumpy
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah. No one likes a grumpy guy. Uh, so, okay. So energy audits, you're looking for leaks and drafts and stuff like that. And, you said safety also.
Right.
So that would also be like the electric panels and stuff like that.
It's the electric panels, but it's also mold. It's looking for making sure that you don't have any mold in the house, and it's carbon monoxide and gas leaks. Usually the gas leak, you can smell it. Carbon monoxide is harder to smell. So, if you have a gas-fired, stove, gas-fired water heater, gas-fired, furnace, making sure we're testing that and making sure it's working properly, and then also drafting properly. We want to make sure that all the flue gases are going outside.
Right.
And that's a huge part of it. And I've unfortunately, I've walked into people's homes, where that was not taken care of, and they've gotten sick, like very sick.
Hmm.
You will hear every once in a while about people, dying from carbon monoxide poisoning. And I've had to run about 4 or 5 times out of a house, and
Oof.
it's a 45-year-old furnace boiler, you turn it on, um, and all of a sudden it's just leaking carbon monoxide all over you, and you gotta like turn it off and run out. And it can be really scary, and it's something I think about a lot. That's why I personally switch over houses to electrical whenever I can. And I've done it a couple times where we got off propane and put in electric, and it feels safer for me for a lot of those reasons. But that's a big part of the safety. Yeah. So we want to make sure air quality,
That's
you
really,
know.
I did not know that. I mean, when you said
Yeah.
mold, I was like, burn energy on it?
Sure. Yeah. We want to make sure there's no leaks, but then, if you're breathing in that mold, asthma is definitely a thing. And um, I've
Oh,
done so many of them, and I did so many in Philadelphia, where it's a lot of different types of homes, and they're actually pretty sealed, because they're row homes. So on both sides, you have, just it's going to be sealed in. If you're just breathing in that air all day and you're not ventilating properly. So I have a lot of conversations with people, hey, this is what's going on, and yeah.
hmm. Wow. That's that's really cool though. I mean, that's a
Hmm.
really important thing. I mean, a conversation that I've been listening to lately on podcasts is about gas stoves.
Yeah.
And that was really
You,
interesting for me to hear because it's, people are like, well, electric isn't great for canning, and of course I'm a canner. And gas stoves, they heat up so fast and they're so efficient, blah blah blah. But then, it's almost like new information. I don't, it's new information for me anyway. Like it makes sense.
there's a couple reasons for that. One is people have the standby of you can use gas to different lower, higher levels, right? And I think that's probably what I don't can, but my God, that's my guess. It's easier you can get for a lower. But what's happened over the last 10 years, and especially in the last 4 or 5 years, is that technology is just absolutely, because we're focusing on this now instead of more gas stoves, technology's gone through the roof. So when you have something like induction stoves, which I have an electric stove now, but just using induction, I love induction stoves. First of
Terrible for
all,
canning though.
what's that?
Terrible for canning.
Are you sure?
Yep, I am.
Okay. Can you just you can do lower levels though with the induction stoves. Is that what it is? Do you know what it is?
No, it just took forever and ever and ever to bring a pot to boiling. And then it would just like keep dropping the temperature, and you have to keep the temperature high for a while.
Hmm.
Maybe it was a crappy induction stove.
Could have been and I think you maybe have to have a better like cast iron pot. Is that what it is? Is one of those? Do you know?
No, I mean
I know.
I bought a pot specifically for an induction
Hmm.
stove because I was renting a kitchen that had one, and so I had
Hmm.
to buy a special pot. Um,
Hmm.
and it just didn't. It took forever and ever and ever to come to boiling.
Well, I'm gonna call somebody. I'm gonna figure that out for you. I don't know why. Because I don't have problems, but I'm like, boiling black beans or something. I'm not doing stuff like that. It's probably easier. But for me, my regular, just cooking, just found it so much easier to clean. The other and just because you have this flat surface that you're cleaning off now instead of in all the different.
True.
And what happens with those stoves is food falls in the gas. And it falls in with the place where the gas comes out, and it makes it not work properly. And they're never sufficiently airing outside. You know what I mean? A lot of times you go and you turn the fan on, you realize it's just blowing back in your face, and that is not good.
Yeah. Well,
And
especially like when you're like flicking the thing to turn it on to light it,
mhm.
you can smell I'm very sensitive to that, but I
I've become more sensitive to it, and I don't, I don't smell a lot of things. I don't know that it's a thing that I'm necessarily, but I've become like more, carbon monoxide and that gas. Maybe it's because I almost got hit a couple times pretty bad that it's it's something I'm hyper aware of. Um, but yeah, I don't like gas stoves at all. But I'll try and solve your canning problems.
Well, I don't have an induction stove, so you don't have to, but
Oh, okay.
someday. I also don't have a gas stove. But it was just an interesting thing I mean, and the fact that I've used an induction. It was like a cooktop, not a stove. So
Hmm.
I I do not know. It was the stove that was there. Uh,
I did that. I did it on like a cabinet I had that you just plug it in. But it was nice because I didn't have a lot of counter space, so I could just take it out and put it in a drawer and then put it away. And it was like people were just blown away. Like, how do you not? I was like, I have that, and then I have a convection oven that I would use. And
right.
the answer is always, well, you can't cook a turkey in it. And I was like,
Watch
how
me.
many turkeys are well? How often am I really cooking a turkey?
For real.
That sort of thing. Like, and then I'll just order it and heat it up. I'm not gonna run my lifestyle by Thanksgivings,
For one
but
turkey. Yeah.
for one turkey a year. But that's just me. Everyone else can live their lives. Um, oh yeah,
So we were
so yeah,
talking
so it's
about
good.
that. We were talking about, I mean, so con- uh oh my gosh, what is that called in the stove? I lost
The
my word.
gas, the carbon monoxide, the
The one that doesn't
um,
do well for canning.
induction.
Thank you.
Hmm.
So we were talking about that.
Hmm.
And so that is probably going to be the most efficient cooktop, like as
Right.
opposed to, an old electric stove, which is what I have, and the gas stoves. Um,
What if
and
you just go a different direction first? Like, you start pulling out the crock pots and stuff like that. I end up just going a different direction altogether. Sometimes I'll use anyway, but go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, you're fine. Uh, I just, we're trying to, I veered us away. I want to try to bring it back so I don't mess the whole thing up. But so we were talking about energy audits
Hmm.
and so I love that you're looking for mold. Like I did not I that's new to me.
Hmm.
Um and that's really, really important. I mean, is it like are you looking for something, or do you have some sort of a detector for mold?
It's usually, well, with mold's tricky. You're looking for wet spots first.
Right.
If you have access to the underside of a roof, that's going to be the first place you're going to look. And what'll happen is, so also if you have radiant heating, like hydronic heating, it could be anywhere. If you find that your hydronic heating isn't working properly, you could have a leak. But then also in the plumbing system as well. So depending on the type of home you have, the idea is to check all everywhere and make sure it's not just dripping. So if you have a house with a crawl space, for example, you want to look under there and make sure there's no like just drips,
Oh yeah.
because it can, depending on in Philadelphia specifically, people will put up basements. They build in their basement, which you really shouldn't do. Carbon monoxide being an issue, but then also they'll put the drywall on the ground, and that'll just start soaking up moisture. And
Oh,
then
that
you
sounds
have
awful.
and yeah, and then you have mold, and then it's like a whole thing. Like they think they're building a wall, but and they think it's safer. But if
The
these
drywall on the
houses,
floor, you're saying?
like, I mean, it just
Or like
touches the floor.
above concrete?
It's on the wall, but it's
Oh,
it's just
okay.
touching the
Yeah,
floor.
yeah, yeah.
You want
Okay.
to make sure you're not touching the floor with it, but also there's different ways you can do construction specifically to to help those places, those areas. Uh, but for that, it's so there's a couple places. Yeah, basements to look for, look in attics, look in roofs, look around the plumbing, and then look around if you have hydronic heating, looking there as well.
Okay. That's really interesting.
Mhm.
I mean, it was like such a cool thing when I was growing up that, we actually had bedrooms in the basement.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you have the heating right next to it and it's not working properly,
Oh,
it can
yeah,
be,
that makes
yeah.
sense.
If it's not, if um, it's actually with most construction, it's not really allowed to put them in those to put bedrooms in the basements. And
Oh,
I've met some people I met one specific woman that her child was having difficulty in school because of it, because of carbon monoxide leak. And that's a person that's burned into my brain, and I think about all the time, actually, whenever I'm doing these.
sure.
So it's like, gotta remember to explain that to people, make sure that they, you know,
Well,
understand it, because we don't talk about these things because natural gas companies don't want us to talk about it. Sorry, just my little.
yes. Okay. And so, I mean, and so a lot of energy audits are going to be, I know that we had to have an energy audit before, putting our solar panels on or our heat pump, one of the two, or maybe
Mhm.
like just to make sure that, you're not going to be wasting that energy. Um, or
Depending on the different areas and different state that you're in, it can be really specific. A lot of the East Coast areas, we're talking municipalities and, John over here wants to do something different than Mark, 20 miles away. So I can't speak to what it is overall in the federally, but I can say that you go to your local authority having jurisdiction, always get permits, because sometimes a contractor try and get you to not get a permit. And I always recommend to get, oh, I mean, it definitely
conflict.
happens. Yeah, that you good because their permits, they're there for a reason. And my brother had a similar situation recently where I was like, just get the permit. And it was good because you catch things that safety wise. But what they're doing when they're doing that audit, if you're doing the solar, especially with you're doing with the heat pump, you're just making sure um, if it's required in the area, you're probably getting some sort of a discount. You know what I mean? You're getting some money back from the state because they're doing it that way or from the utility. And they're, doing their due diligence. And there's a lot of people who like this job, like I did, that are, going out, doing a good job. Same reasons I enjoy it, talking to people in their home, helping them out. And if they're good, talking to I was always like, hey, follow me around. It's fine. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? This is your
Oh, I would
house,
I would want to see like,
Absolutely.
because when you're like, do you see that over there, that spot or whatever?
Absolutely. And I would encourage it whenever I could. And it was interesting when I did it like as an auditor and we were hiring people. It wasn't necessarily contractors or tradespeople they were looking for. It was just, you know, did you work in restaurants? Are you a teacher? It was kind of a different type of an attitude. And then and it came from there. So it was um
Hmm.
I love that job. No,
Oh,
now, no more, no more attics, no more crawl spaces for me now. But when my neighbors and friends ask me to do it, I still do
yeah. You've done your time for sure. I mean, since
it.
2010, geez Louise.
Yeah,
And so, you said you've been doing energy audits for about 12 years. That's
yeah,
still a really long time. That's a lot of house.
yeah.
Um,
It's a lot of houses. I look at 6 or 7 houses a day where I'm just evaluating what other people have done in their audits and so it's even I mean, if you look at it that way, I've done I don't know, 10,000, whatever crazy number that is, but yeah.
right? Wow. Um, all right. And so let's talk solar.
Mhm.
Let's hit some solar. And I mentioned this to you before we started recording, but I mean, I've heard some conflicting information, like just sort of, I mean, I've always had good experience with it, but I know, like I was telling you when I was looking at this house in Virginia, the realtor I was working with said that the solar farms are bad for the environment, that there were people that, the companies that were trying to buy up the land from the farmers um, to say they were going to put solar on, but they still haven't done it. It's been years, blah blah blah. But he was also saying that, it's not great. Like you can't really farm or garden on that land once the solar panels are there. And it just really made me think. And so I'm glad to have this conversation with you to ask you that. So, what do you say about that?
A, a few things. I've heard a lot of these types of comments. I remember years ago, a person that worked in a utility actually near you that will remain nameless was saying they were against solar because of the batteries, which didn't really make sense. And I've also heard, with realtors specifically, sometimes they don't know how to manage that part of the project, with the home. Um, as far as for and also if you're putting solar in an area, sometimes it can be farmed. They do like they have sheep and grazing and things like that underneath them, which actually really helps too because it helps to keep them cool underneath. And they don't take up a huge swath of area necessarily. If you took up through 5 acres of just solar, you would power a lot of houses, and 5 acres of farmland isn't very much. So it's just kind of one of those things where it's a misconception. And I don't want to say it's, deliberate, but sometimes people just mishear things.
Right.
I lived in a community where they were being pushed into buying a huge propane tank instead of putting in solar. And I lived in California for a while, and this was one of the best places for solar in the world.
Mhm.
Was at 5,500 feet. And
Also,
they got talked into it from a propane dealer, and that one I can speak to specifically, where they got talked, oh no, you want propane here because you don't want solar because it's not feasible. And it was an absurd, very wrong-headed idea. And you just for some reason people like I don't believe anybody. Big way to say this. In the world we live in today, I'm gonna go big with it.
you got to
Don't
do
believe
your own
anyone. And you got
research.
oh yeah, that's even a complicated phrasing too. But I mean, you kind of do have to do your research with certain things. And solar, a couple of things as far as your own research. It's not changing anytime soon, too. I think sometimes people are like, oh, there'll be another thing in 5 years. But the solar panels, the way they are now, it's been around for about 50 years. We've been going up percentage-wise, efficiency-wise, like incrementally, very small in the last 10 years. They kind of are where they are. Um, there's sometimes people say, oh, well, it's poisoning the environment. It's not true. They're talking about when we throw them away, which is going to be in 40 years or so. And I actually work on a nonprofit on a board where some people that are dealing with that sort of an issue
Oh, that's
specifically.
a really good point.
It's just not what they're doing. They're going to be recycling them, and these have been working. Ones from the 70s still work. They might be a little bit less efficient, but they're still going.
Hmm.
So it's just we're not just throwing them away in 25, 30 years. They just keep going and going and going.
That's a
Partially
really good
because
point.
yeah. And what else? And then as far as, sometimes you just run into people and you have to make a decision on how far you want to take that conversation. And um sometimes there's ulterior motives, and sometimes they read something on the internet once and then they're giving you, it's like, oh,
Now they're an expert. Yeah.
now they're an expert, right? Um so
Gotcha. Well, that's good to know because I mean, I did not research that, but I was just very curious, and I was glad to be able to have this conversation with you to
yeah.
mm,
It's a thing I've heard so many times, and even when I've taught solar installation classes, people come in with a preconceived notion about the whole thing, and they kind of feel like they have to take it, for whatever reason. And so I'm pretty good at being even about it,
yeah.
not
Well, I'm glad
not
to
being
hear.
political, just being trying to be honest about it. So
Yeah. Well, it's really
um,
interesting on that point about it coming from realtors mainly, or in a large part. That's just really interesting. So maybe
I don't know why. Like it's such a. I've just tried to figure it out. Like I've because I've actively, as a contractor, reach out to realtors and say, hey, why don't you push more solar to your clients? But they just don't want to do it. And
I
I
would
can
be
never quite
such a
figure out why.
such a huge seller. Like I'm looking forward to selling this house and being like, from March till October, you're gonna pay like $10 a month.
Well, it depends if you like do it as a lease or if you own it outright. I think that's a big part of it. I think if you own it, if you own it as if you're leasing your solar panels in one way or another, um, it's another credit ding. So I think that's where the realtors are concerned.
It's a
If you're
credit thing? Really?
ding is a bad phrase word to
Well,
use.
I
You
know
know what
it's
I mean? Like it's
kind of a
another.
negative thing, but like how is it bad?
I don't think that it is. I think that's their thinking.
Weird.
Um, yeah. I mean, it's hard to argue with when people are
Wrong. It's hard to
misinformed from
argue
the
when they're
beginning. When they're misinformed from the beginning, it's hard to like say, well, you're just kind of wrong. Sometimes people don't want to hear that. So I stopped marketing to realtors and just, just in general. And when people ask me questions about it, because you're not the first, you are by far you're definitely not the first person that's brought this up to me. And it's usually realtors who are kind of against it.
I know your face
And
when I brought that up, you're like, oh man.
here it comes, right? I
Oh,
know.
we've done this before.
Yeah. That's fine. And that's fine. I'm glad you're bringing it up because I may have forgotten about it or just blocked it.
But it seems like a really I I thought it was like a really hard job, but the guys were here when doing this in October while I was working, and like it was half a day. It was
Yeah.
wild how efficient the setup was.
Though putting in them themselves, yeah. Once you get good at it, well, it's kind of it's just like any construction work. You try and do as quickly as you can. You know,
Yeah.
truck rolls are expensive, and the new like when I first started doing it, like it was forever ago when it was only like 15 years ago, but it was very different. Technology was brand new, and now it's just you just see new iterations every year, more efficient, better for installs, more quick installs, more safe installs,
Mhm.
and yeah, half a day in and out, depending on your electrical. Sometimes you have to do a full electrical upgrade, but you know, that's a different
Then you just
component
have an
that you do.
extra guy to come to do the, or
Yeah,
girl to do the
that's
electrical part.
absolutely, or person, or they, or whatever.
So you're a fan.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And so I'm not sure where I want to go with that, but I'm a fan too, especially right
Well,
now.
I mean, yeah, it's good. Like, it's just trying to get yourself away, depending on where you live. If you're like, and if you're in like an off-grid situation, instead of having that propane tank, which is what I've had, and when I had it, I lived in California. I mean, it's in the fire zone, man. Like those natural gas and propane is, I know it sounds obvious, but it, it's a fire. You know
Right,
what I mean?
right.
So, and that was a good, just peace of mind for me. And then, like I said, with carbon monoxide poisoning, getting that out of there, is another, um, thing that I
Yeah, for
really enjoy
sure.
doing. And heat pumps are so efficient now. Like, it's the same type of thing with the electrical, stovetop is that it's so new, and in the last 4 or 5 years, it's just constantly getting better and better really quickly. The company I work for now did a pretty big evaluation on low temperature heat pumps in New York and Massachusetts. And overall, I mean, this was an evaluation not only for how well it's being used, but also how the customers felt about it. Ask a bunch of questions. And, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 people were happy with using a heat pump. Some of them had backup, some of them didn't, but the ones that didn't seemed fine. And, there's misconception that those don't work well under 35 degrees, and that may have been true 5 years ago, but it's just not true now. So can't like be on top of it.
Awesome. I love that it's
Yeah.
always improving and it's just they're so efficient, especially and gosh, so the heat pump with the solar panels.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so you were talking about you were talking about the big propane tank in California,
Mhm.
which I think is probably a good place to kind of pivot a little bit to the book that you wrote, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I wrote a book called After Oil 2047. Um, Kind of a not necessarily a dystopian viewpoint. What's going to happen after oil is gone after in 2047? I think there's going to be part. Well, I should say, sorry here. The company I work for now, I mean, we do evaluations in that way. What are we going to do in 25, 30 years? And that's the idea a lot of these states, regardless of federal, are trying to do is get to mostly renewables and get off fossil fuel by that time. And there's going to be some hiccups, along the way. And what I did was just show one person in Philadelphia, how they're navigating the world at that time, with their job and their family and their community. And then also, I think that we need to be cognizant of how we're treating people as we do it. People have to um, be paying people well and taking care, making sure that our people that are workers are taken care of and things like that. So I think it speaks to that component as well. One of the big things is jet fuel is going to be complicated.
Yeah, for sure.
So you can't electric planes right now. They can't get very big. Just not enough power. So, one of the main points in the book is that our main character works for a large company that has developed this new type of battery that can help to move those planes, and what happens next.
Oh,
Because it's complicated, because we need to start generating enough power. Now we're just spending a lot of energy and time on how to develop that power
Hmm.
to fly some rich guy across across the Atlantic Ocean or whatever. So there's a lot of components like that in it. I had a lot of fun. I think it's really good. And It's like a beach read, not real long. I don't have a dystopian feel about the whole thing, so I tried to like shy away from that a little bit. And think that I think it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next, it's not that I was like I just looked at the I'm looking at the thing 2025. I was like, really not far off, but what was 2003 like? I can't even remember. I don't.
Um, that was a while ago.
Yeah.
Um, so is 2047, tw yeah, 2047, is that like
Yeah.
a legit date that is being looked at for that?
Sure. Absolutely. So, they're shooting for 2050. Um, One of the pop points is this 2047 kind of for a reason. They
Okay.
kind of they're the first to market, as it were, that sort of thing. They're the guy ahead of it. But yeah, there's definitely a time period when we're trying to figure out how all that is going to work, just in general.
Okay. So
Mhm.
if you don't mind, Jeremiah, can I just ask like how you got into this? Like why are you doing this energy stuff?
It's a great question. I was 32 and didn't really have a job I liked or a career that I enjoyed and was trying to figure out what to do. And it was 2009. Um, and I wanted to work. I was like, okay, I'll do this. I'll work in energy efficiency. I'll work in solar. So I took a very large pay cut, although I really wasn't working. It wasn't doing anything, useful. But so I started, and it was from, frankly, Obama. It was programs that were put in place from the administration where they were teaching people to do, energy efficiency and solar. And New Jersey State had a solar program and that I wanted to take advantage of. And and I taught high school in another life, so it was an easy transition. I spent a year on a roof and then started teaching the classes, and I started teaching solar classes in prisons, in unemployment groups, just to contractors, things like that, which was a really interesting experience. And then I just kept getting a little bit, learn a little over here, learn a little over there. So, I ended up getting a wide variety of experience, but all in this renewable energy efficiency world. Which is helpful in my current gig because we do a lot of different types of consulting, which is very interesting and pretty hard.
Pretty hard.
It's hard. It's like writing a report. I was like, wow, I'm writing a report. I can't believe it.
Oh, that's good.
But
Super tedious. Yeah.
it's tedious. I work with a lot of very smart people that make it
They
better.
make it harder than maybe it needs to be.
No, they make
No.
it better than I could. I have my, contractor spin on things, but I think as a group we work together and it's really interesting. Never really had an opportunity to work in a group like this. And I think it makes me better, in a lot of ways. But yeah, so that's how I started. Just was like needed a job and couldn't figure out who I wanted to be or what I wanted to do. And it was like in 2009, it wasn't really a thing before that. There were people doing it, but not very many,
Right.
so those programs pushed the industry. And Yeah.
That's very cool. I mean, so it was just something that happened to be available, but you're still doing it.
I know, and yeah, it's great. Super psyched about that.
What would you
Mhm.
14 years, 15 years, 16
Fif-
years?
15,
2009.
15. Yeah, yeah, 2009, I think I first started and um yeah, I actually, interestingly enough, was installing cable. I decided I didn't want to be, as a teacher thing was complicated and I didn't want to go back to school to get a teacher certificate. I was installing cable and I was like, I kind of like this. This isn't too bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like driving around the truck, going to people's houses. I was like, maybe there's a version of this that I could do, but in a more of a growing field. And the energy efficiency and solar stuff was right in front of me, and it just kind of
Definitely
worked
not
out.
cable anymore.
Yeah, right, right. Now cable's gone. That's a good point. I didn't think about it that way. Yeah, now cable's gone. Nobody does that.
That was a good plan.
Yeah, I was like, it worked
Choice.
out. Yeah, I think so.
All right. Well, that's cool. But you love it. I mean, that's awesome. I love that. It's and you're educating people, which I think is super important. So, I mean, when just sort of not even considering all this, but just in general, like I always ask people on the podcast, like, what does the word sustainability mean to you? Just you personally. It can be
Just
a
me
million.
personally, I think what does the word sustainability mean to me? I think it starts from efficiency. We're just not redoing things, like just a broad term, is not doing things twice. We're
Mhm.
doing things as easily and as quickly as possible. And then when we talk about sustainable solar and heat pumps is such a just right there. It's the sun. You know what I mean? It's using the wind or other new interesting technologies, using wind, using tidal flows, you know what I mean? Those sorts of things that you can do on the coasts. Um,
Just
that's
harnessing
what's
what's already there, not even
yeah,
creating new stuff.
it's the moon, man. It's just the sun, man. It's all right there. So using that is really fascinating and obvious. And there are people that are against it because it's hard to make money off the sun. So that's unfortunate. And that's why when I hear, oh, well, I heard this, things that are untrue, I was like, well, I could probably, if I could, figure out the
Started that.
who was patient zero. If we were patient zero in that little thing that you just served, I'm sure a good idea where it will come from. And it's usually from, somebody that's trying to make money off of it because you can't make money off the sun. So
Gotcha. Okay.
Mhm.
And so now if somebody wants more information, they're like, "Ooh, you just touched on these little things and I'd really love more information." Like, how can people find Jeremiah Jancik?
Well, you can just look me up on jeremiahjancik.com. That's my information there in my resume. What's that?
You're the only one.
Yeah, that's just me. I don't I don't have to hide that. So I don't need a fancy name. And yeah, you look me up there if you have any questions or thoughts. I'd love to talk about it. And then from there you can get the book if you're interested. Like I said, it's a fun kind of easy summer read. And I'm always looking for new, interesting ideas and opportunities and um, do it from there.
Awesome. All right,
Mhm.
you guys. So Jeremiah Jancik, I want you to check him out, and I want you to, get back to me or let Jeremiah know how you enjoyed this episode because this is I learned a lot. Like I have solar panels, but I told you before, like I have solar panels, but I'm not smart. I just have them because it made sense. Um, but so to one have that question answered about the solar farms and also just to understand like energy audits and everything that goes into that and just it's just a very rounded conversation about energy efficiency. Like it's just very cool. I love that it really is sort of all connected and you're like at the heart of all of it.
I try. I'm learning every day, but I've also had a lot of practice, so it's good. It's a good combination.
Yeah, you have. All right. So Jeremiah Jancik, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate that.
Thank you so much.